welcome to the Eurofolk Radio Daycare. I'm sorry, this is Bloodlines.
Oh,
I love that little nursery rhyme, right?
yes, I like that.
Yeah, Carl Klang, that was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. All right, this is Bloodlines on EurofolkRadio.com, and today is May 29th, 2016. And today, Pastor Steve has a rant prepared for y'all, and it's entitled Take Back Your Birthright. So we're going to find out. I think, Pastor Steve, just cue me on what verses you want to talk about,
All right.
and I'll follow along.
Well, I'm going to do it slow enough that my Israelite brothers and sisters can look them up. Um, for those listening, you might want to get a pad and a pencil to write these down because you're going to want to look at them. You really need to look these up, and you learn more when you look them up yourself. I'm going to start out with Malachi 3:6.
Okay.
For I am Yahweh, I change not. Therefore, you sons of Jacob are not consumed.
Okay, right
Okay?
away, I see a question from a naysayer. If
Okay.
Yahweh does not change, then why did we have a new covenant?
That was our fault, not his.
Okay. Yeah,
We
right.
are, we are, I'm going to get into that later.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
Related,
Keep that in
related
mind.
verses, related verses are Numbers 23:19,
Okay.
1 Samuel 15:29, Psalms 102:26, Hebrews 6:18 and 13:8, James 1:17, Revelations 1:8 and 22:13. He does not change. When Yeshua Messiah came, he was a direct manifestation of the Father, and he did not change any of the Father's laws. He did away with none of the Torah. What he did away with was man made Pharisaical laws that they brought from Babylon that our enemy practice today, and they use these laws to pretend to be us.
And that's what Paul calls the works of the law, as we
The
discussed on
works
Friday.
of their
Right.
works, and that's what's going on there.
But in addition to that, we would also have to say that the sacrificial ordinances, all of which pointed to the coming of Messiah, those are no longer less necessary because he came. So that,
Well, what he did there is fulfill that part of the Torah.
right,
He was the perfect
the fulfillment.
Passover lamb, and we need no other blood sacrifice for remission of sin
Right,
because he fulfilled all of that. Bulls and goats were not getting it done. That
right,
was a yearly covering over
right.
of the sins of Israel,
Yes,
and he has covered our sins over and redeemed us nationally.
right,
It was a
right,
national redemption. You can only redeem that which was once yours.
right. So, in other words, since Yahweh announced that this is what he was going to do, and he always keeps his promises and covenants that he would send a Redeemer to Israel, he has not changed. He has simply delivered on a promise.
Yes, he's not going to do it. He has done
He
it,
has done it. Right.
you
All right.
know, and that's why when Yeshua released his spirit, they couldn't kill him. He had to release his spirit.
Okay.
He said, "It is finished." He had finished his task here until he comes back to reign as king.
Okay.
All right.
Next
I'm
verse.
probably I'm probably going to upset a bunch of people with this. Our problem today stems from the fact that we have been rebellious and disobedient, and we didn't take care of business. We were commissioned to wipe out the Canaanites completely. And we were
Yes.
warned, warned, warned. If you do not do that, they will be a thorn in your side. Here
Yep.
we are today, and they are a thorn in our side.
Yes.
Okay, we can't go back in time, and I'm hearing an echo. I'm hearing myself echo in the background, Eli.
Okay.
Um,
Hope you can deal with it. I'm not hearing it.
yeah, well, we have to concentrate on what we're going to do now for the future. Because Yahweh never said, just rely on Yahshua. He's coming back. He's going to kill all these people. He's going to do this. It requires action on our part. And my point is to exhort my Israelite brothers and sisters out there to righteousness, to follow Yahweh's commandments. And what I am seeing is the picking and choosing of which commandments we like and which commandments we really are uncomfortable with.
Right.
And, and,
And disobey
and
them.
that's follow not after your heart,
Right.
by which you used to go astray.
Uh-huh. Yes.
I have
Yes.
listened, and I do this in love now. Okay, brotherly
Right.
love, and I am an elder, and I must do corrections where I find error.
Okay.
I am going to read in Genesis chapter 17, beginning at verse 10 or 9. Let's just say this. This is Yahweh speaking to Abraham. Said Elohim to Abraham, you, my covenant, shall keep you and your seed line afterward in their generations. This is my covenant, which you shall keep between me and you, and between your seed line afterwards.
Our line of descent or posterity.
This
Posterity.
is this is not a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
This is not optional. This is a direct commandment.
Okay.
This
Peop-
is my covenant which you shall keep
yes.
between me and between you and between your seed line afterwards shall be circumcised with you all males. You shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. A son of 8 days shall be circumcised among you. Not maybe, should be, shall be circumcised among
Right.
you. All males in their generations, born in your household or bought with your money from any son of a racial alien, which is not from the seed line of you, must be circumcised, those born in your household. Not maybe, not should be, I would like you to, must be circumcised. Those born in your household or bought with your money, and shall be my covenant in your flesh for a covenant everlasting. The possessor of a foreskin, male, that is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin shall be cut off, that person, from his people. My covenant he has broken. Now, I understand that there are some butchers out there that mess up some of the circumcision. I understand that the baby will cry. I understand that there will be blood. Yahweh
Yes.
understands that too.
Sure.
Okay? because you don't like this, it makes you uncomfortable, it makes a baby cry, does not negate this fact that this is a direct commandment to our people from Yahweh. It is not optional. It says in the New Testament, circumcise the foreskin of your heart. That is a metaphorical usage. When those new people came back in from the Grecian lands and the Romans and the others that were not circumcised before, it is true that circumcision does not save you. It's not going to get you into heaven because there's a lot of circumcised people out there that are not going to make it.
That's Jews.
But
Right.
yes, sir. But if you believe, you will follow Yeshua and you will listen to him when he says, if you love me, keep my commandments. He gave the commandments of the Father. He did not say, maybe you should do this. It would be nice if you should do this. Keep my commandments. Now, you all are going to do whatever you want to do. I can't force you. But I'm telling you the verses where it is commanded by Yahweh.
Okay.
I see a lot of, we cannot pick and choose which ones we will obey. Okay? I'm sorry if that upsets anybody. If you're going to say you're Israel, these new people that came in were circumcised later. That's a fact.
Okay.
Because they obeyed.
Right. And this is in the New Testament?
That's in the New Testament.
Okay.
Yes. They all, then they said they gave them don't eat blood, don't eat anything sacrificed to an idol, and do this and do that. And they had a beginner's kit. Okay? But then they said study the Torah and learn the Torah and obey the Torah. So they went on after that to learn the Torah. They were taught. And they were circumcised later because that is the sign, an outward sign that we are of the Abrahamic covenant. And that is an ordinance forever. Okay? I see a lot of people that think I'm weird walking around, and I have fringes with a thread of blue hanging outside of my garment. I wear a four-cornered garment, and it has fringes on the corners with a thread of what is called in Hebrew techelet, which is blue, and that is found in Numbers 15:38 and Deuteronomy 22:12. Numbers 15:38, I'll read from the King James. Speak unto the children of Israel, and this is Yahweh spoke unto Moses, let's put it that way, and bid them, in other words, command them, say to them, that they make fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put upon the fringe of the borders a ribbon of blue, a thread of techelet is what it says, a cord. Now you remember when the woman reached out and touched the garment of Yeshua and was healed.
Right.
If you read it, she touched the tzitzit, which is the fringe, that's the Hebrew word for the fringe, of his garment, and was healed. Yeshua obeyed that because he was the Son and he would not negate what the Father had commanded. This is not a fashion suggestion. This is a direct commandment to Israel. Now, brothers and sisters, this applies to the brothers only. That is a male garment. If you say you are Israel, you need to be Israel. Because the Jews, the imposters, the impersonators, are trying to steal our birthright. And they wear fringes They don't have a thread of blue. I have experienced their hatred here locally when they see me with a hat that says Israel on it in Hebrew, and they see the teat outside of my garment with a thread of blue, and they've got all white teat, that they almost explode.
Right.
It's a glorious thing to see their anger.
Yeah, right. To, to,
Okay,
tip off a Jew, right?
I we
Okay.
are talking the talk. Oh, I'm Israel,
Okay.
and if I wear something like that at the workplace, people are going to think I'm weird. Who cares what people think? You're Israel.
Right.
If they
Right.
ask you about it, you will explain that those are to be a reminder of the commandments, which is in the verse in Deuteronomy. You see them and you are reminded of the commandments that you were given that
Right.
day, and you explain that to them, that that is a biblical commandment to the seed of Israel, and you are Israel, and who Israel is, it gives you a talking point.
Sure. Sure.
You are
Right.
not going to
What?
make
Yikes.
converts.
Right.
You are not going to make converts unless you talk to people.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
tell your fellow Israelites that are ignorant of the truth.
Okay. Well,
You can't just rely on us on the radio to do it. You're
well,
going to have
right.
to take part.
I can see people walking up to you and asking you, "Why are you dressed so funny?"
They
And
do
now
all the
you've got a
time.
talking point, right?
They do all the time.
Right. Of course.
It
Of
happens
course.
constantly, and
Right.
I have made inroads in a Southern Baptist church here. The Southern Baptist Church is now preaching in the name of Yahweh and using the name of Yeshua
That's great.
because I evangelized them. I told them the truth,
Mm-hmm.
and it shocked them.
Yes, I'm sure it did.
And the pastor has a doctorate,
Right.
and he went and looked everything up. I told him, and the deacons were all questioning this, and the pastor says, "Well, um, he's right," and they almost fell through the floor.
Right. Right. Okay. Let's back up and go to circumcision again because I've always been wondering what is it about? Why is it on the eighth day? And of course, as a baby, Yeshua was circumcised on the eighth day.
That is correct.
And I know that whenever Yahweh gives a commandment pertaining to our bodies, pertaining to our health, He knows what He's talking about. He knows what He's doing. So there's a reason for it being on the eighth day. All right, so from this apologeticspress.org, a close examination of the Bible reveals a startling proof of its inspiration. Sometimes that proof comes in the form of prophecy, blah, blah, blah. And talking about the circumcision in Genesis 17:12, God specifically directed Abraham to circumcise newborn males on the eighth day. And of course, the Muslims wait until the 14th year. Why the eighth day? In 1935, Professor H. Dam, D-A-M, proposed the name vitamin K for the factor in foods that help prevent hemorrhaging in baby chicks. We now know vitamin K is responsible for the production by the liver of the element known as prothrombin. Prothrombin. If vitamin K...
Clotting.
Yeah, right. If vitamin K is deficient, there will be a prothrombin deficiency and hemorrhaging may occur. Oddly, it is only on the 5th through the 7th days of the newborn male's life that vitamin K, produced by bacteria in the intestinal tract, is present in adequate quantities. Vitamin K coupled with prothrombin causes blood coagulation, which is important in any surgical procedure. You don't have to induce it medically. Holt and McIntosh, in their classic work, Holt Pediatrics, observed that a newborn infant has peculiar susceptibility to bleeding between the 2nd and 5th days of life. Therefore, it should not be performed on those days. Hemorrhages at this time, though often inconsequential, are sometimes extensive. They may produce serious damage to internal organs, especially to the brain, and cause death from shock and exsanguination. That means excessive bleeding. All right, so there is a scientific reason, folks, a scientific reason for waiting until the 8th day. Okay?
Okay, let's go to the book of Joshua, chapter 5, verse 2. At that time, Yahweh said unto Yeshua, make thee sharp knives, and circumcise again the children of Israel the second time. And Yeshua made him sharp knives, and circumcised the children of Israel at the hill of the foreskins. And this is the cause why Yeshua did circumcise all the people that came out of Egypt that were males. Even all the men of war had died in the wilderness by the way after they came out of Egypt. Now all the people that came out were circumcised, but all the people that were born in the wilderness, by the way, as they came forth out of Egypt, they had not circumcised. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness till all the people that were men of war which came out of Egypt were consumed, because they obeyed not the voice of Yahweh, unto whom Yahweh swore that he would not show them the land which Yahweh swore unto their forefathers, that he would give us a land that flowed with milk and honey. Now, if this kid was born 2 years out, he was 38 years old.
Okay.
When he was circumcised. Okay? So this is a commandment forever from Yahweh. And the new people that came into the church believed and trusted on Yeshua Messiah and had not been circumcised because they had been living in a foreign land as sojourners, even though they were Israelites, and had never been circumcised because of the religious beliefs of that land. They started studying the Torah and were circumcised later, just like these people in the book of Joshua. They followed the commandments, the same way with baptism. Baptism does not get you into heaven, but it is a commandment.
Right. Okay. Well, some people would say the same thing about circumcision, that doesn't get you into heaven either.
It does not.
Okay.
But
right.
it is an obedience to the command of Yahweh. Well, baptism is an obedience to the command of Yeshua Messiah.
Yes. Okay, well, here, let's go, because it's an important subject for our people. Let's go to Romans chapter 2, where Paul discusses this in detail. Rome 2:25, for circumcision verily profiteth if thou keep the law. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. So, in this, he's actually criticizing the Jews here because they don't keep the law.
That's correct.
Okay, they pretend to.
And that commandment was never given to the Jews.
That's right. But they
can
pretend.
They can circumcise them at the neck and cut the head off.
Right. But this certainly applies to us as well as males.
That's
Romans 2:26. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? Okay, well, here, let me, this seems to me that Paul is saying
that's the Jews are never going to get saved.
That's right, yeah, because they only practice circumcision of the foreskin. But let me read Romans 2:26.
Yeah, to try to steal our birthright, which is the topic of
right. But as it applies to us, because obviously Paul is applying this to those who have circumcision of the heart, as prophesied in Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 37, because that is that the law will be written in our hearts. Let me repeat Romans 2:26. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? So it seems to me, Pastor Steve, and Pastor Dan is messaging me that he thinks that this verse means we don't need to practice circumcision. And he also considers it to be a mutilation of the foreskin that was only temporary. One of the laws that's been done away with. Your reaction, your response.
Where did Yeshua, who is the only one that had the authority to do away with this law, do away with it? What chapter, what verse? Where did he negate that?
Well, if you count it as a blood ritual, of course it was given through Abraham, not through Moses. Because I certainly see exactly what you're saying. But as you said, you're going to upset some people, okay? Yes. And there are people in identity who don't agree with you on this.
That's okay.
Yeah, all right?
Yahweh does, so, that's okay.
Right. All right, so how do we deal with Romans 2:26 then? Yeah, now maybe, and Yeshua did not put it this way, but in the context of him being crucified for our sins, our past sins. And here Paul says, Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? It sounds to me like Paul is saying you don't need to be physically circumcised. What's more important is circumcision of the heart, that is obeying the law.
Okay.
In any case.
What he is saying there, that of course primarily you have to have the faith in Yeshua Messiah.
Right.
First.
Yes. Okay.
That's a starting point. Then you have your starter kit laws: avoid meat sacrificed to idols, and blood, and that which is strangled, right, and adultery. And that's where you start out at, okay? You start to crawl when you're a baby.
Sure.
But you are to study and you are to learn. And
yes,
it is an outward sign.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is, if you claim to be Israel and of the seed of Abraham, it is not hinging on your salvation. It is an obedience to a direct command.
Yes.
Now, do you believe? Do you trust in Yeshua? Is Yahweh your God?
Okay,
Yeshua said, if you love me, keep my commandments. The commandments of the Father were reiterated by the Son.
Yes.
We're trying to do what we like here.
Right.
What we like and what makes us uncomfortable really doesn't have anything to do with this. Once you believe, and if you are not circumcised, later on, in obedience to the command, the same as baptism, you will be circumcised.
Yeah. Well, let's
because
put this...
if you are of the bloodline of Abraham, this is a commandment to you. No ifs, no ands, no buts. You can't get out from under it. It's not going to make you go to hell if you don't do it, but you're going to have to explain yourself when you face the Father.
Okay. Well, let's put this in the context of the Levitical law, those ritual laws, which the typology of the sacrificial laws, sacrificing lambs, goats, and sheep, and that sort of thing. Okay. That this typology obviously is no longer necessary because Yeshua was the last sacrifice. This was prophesied that this would occur, and therefore it's no longer necessary to sacrifice animals on Passover. In fact, if you do so, you're actually, if you think you're commanded to do so, you're actually violating the law that tells you, no, I want you to stop doing this once the last sacrifice has been performed. Okay?
That is correct.
Right? Okay. So that's in the context of the typology of the Levitical law. So you're saying that circumcision, there's no typology that, at least stated by Yeshua, that negates from physical circumcision.
That is correct. Yeshua never touched on the subject.
Okay, all right. So there's nothing to
This
contradict.
is an opinion of Paul.
Yes, yes. Okay. Well, I've found that the Bible never contradicts itself,
Hmm.
and so he is not directly contradicting Yeshua, because Yeshua never really made the
What
statement
he's
that.
saying here is which is more important. Not that
Yes.
you should not be circumcised,
Okay.
but what's more important, that you obey the law and you haven't had a chance to get circumcised, but you're following the law,
Right. Then you're
or you're
still.
circumcised and you're just living like the devil. The
Right.
Jews are circumcised and
Right.
they are of the devil.
Yes. Yes.
They're not going to get that. They can circumcise themselves all over.
Right.
I don't
Okay.
care. They can cut pieces and parts off.
Right. Okay.
They're
So.
never going to make it.
Right. So, but there are many in identity who disagree with you on this and consider circumcision part of the blood rituals and therefore no longer necessary. So, you said you'd be upsetting some people. But let's
Well,
finish.
that's not found in Leviticus. That is not a Levitical commandment. That is
Right.
a
Understood.
commandment in Bereshit.
Yeah. Understood. Understood. But let's finish through Romans 2:26. I just quoted that, Romans 2:27, and shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee, who by the letter and circumcision dost transgress the law. In other words, if you're a hypocrite, whether
That's right.
whether you believe in circumcision or not, you shouldn't be a hypocrite. Romans 2:28, for he is not a Judahite, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh. Now, it seems to me that Paul is simply denying the necessity of circumcision in the flesh altogether. Romans 2:29, but he is a Judahite, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, which is a reference to Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 37, in the spirit and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men but of God. Okay, so a lot of our people read this and say, okay, well, circumcision is one of those blood rituals that we don't need to follow anymore. Okay, that's how.
That was not a blood sacrifice for the remission of sin.
Okay.
That was a sign of a covenant made with Abraham.
Yes. Now, here is how many people have interpreted that the physical ritual was replaced with the circumcision of the heart, which is something that has to be consciously done, to repent of all your wrongdoing. Okay. So,
Okay,
but as
that is a metaphorical
okay,
usage right there.
yeah,
That's a metaphor. That's correct.
yes, and so when Jesus, his last words in Matthew are that be thereby baptized in the name of Yahweh, Yahshua, and Shekinah. That
Hmm.
these were his last commands. So, okay, we hear what you're saying. I'm getting feedback. There's many people who disagree with you about this, and
Okay, that's
okay,
fine.
but as you said, you're
I
gonna.
have one thing to ask those people.
Okay.
Whose word carries more weight? A direct command by Yahweh to Abraham, our forefather, or the opinion of Paul, which has been twisted in Romans? He's saying it's more important to try to obey the law than it
Yes,
is
of
to
course
cut
it
off a
is.
little piece of flesh.
Of course. Yeah, and
But
nobody's
later
disagreeing
on,
on that.
after they learned, those men that came in were circumcised later.
Okay. And what verse is that?
He was reviling them for not accepting the people of Israel that were coming back from a pagan area. Get them in first and teach them. And then they can follow the whole of the law if they can. Nobody followed it wholly except Yeshua, Messiah. But a commandment is a commandment is a commandment, and nowhere in the New Testament does Yeshua, who is the only one with authority to do that, set aside that commandment.
Okay.
He never did that. Paul is not saying don't be circumcised. He said it's more important to believe on Yeshua than it is to be circumcised.
Okay.
Because there's many that circumcised that do not believe on him, and they doom themselves. That is what he is saying. The circumcision itself is only a sign of a covenant. And what I'm trying to say is we need to reclaim our birthright. All of these commands were given to Israel. They were never given to the Jews at any time.
Of course.
And because the Jews circumcise, that doesn't negate our necessity to obey the command of Yahweh from his mouth when he says, I change not. No one, Yahweh or Yeshua, ever set this aside.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, what else have you got for us?
Okay, the beard.
Okay.
I see a lot of clean-shaven Israelites.
All right.
Let's go to Leviticus. I'm back up in the New Testament on my e-sword here. Leviticus 19:27. Let me zip through my computer here.
Okay. Let me
so many verses. What I'm going to get at here is the men of Israel should wear a beard. Through. You shall not round the corner of your head, neither shall thou mar the corners of thy beard, because they would make their beard look like the pagans and have the goatees and stuff like the Babylonians did. 21:5 Leviticus. Thou shalt not make baldness upon their heads, neither shall they shave off the corner of their beard. David's men had half their beards cut off. They could not appear in public until all their beards were grown.
Okay.
1 Samuel 17:35 and 21:13. 2 Samuel 10:4 and 10:5. 19:24 and 29. Ezra 9:3. Psalms 133:2. Isaiah 7:20 and 15:2. Jeremiah 41:5 and 48:37, and Ezekiel 5:1. All concern the beards of the men of Israel. We're not to shave our beards off.
Okay.
Why are we doing it?
Good question. See if there's, I don't know if, so most of our people haven't considered these things, so I don't know if anybody has any kind of rebuttal on that. So I have a beard because it's just a lot simpler for me to. I don't like to do shaving, so I've never really thought about it in the context of a command. For me, it just feels natural.
I prefer to be clean shaven, but I have a beard because I'm supposed to have a beard.
Okay.
I wear a four-cornered garment with fringes on it, and people look at me funny because it's a commandment.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking the talk a lot of places here. How many of our Israelite brothers and sisters eat pork?
Oh, yeah, many of them.
Okay.
Right.
Those commands were given for health reasons. They have not been negated. You don't go out and eat a pork chop. I don't cook on other people's grills because they grill pork hot dogs and stuff on it. And I don't allow other people to grill on my grill because they bring pork.
Sure.
And it makes them mad. Well, we just won't invite you anymore. Well, okay.
Right.
I am of Israel. I am a set-apart person. We are a set-apart people. We are not to be as the rest of the people.
Yes, absolutely.
We dress different. We look different. We eat different. We worship different. We are not to be in Babylon, and we are. How many people out there have a credit card and pay usury?
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, no, we're
Brothers
still in sin.
Brothers and sisters, you are disobeying a direct command.
Yes. Yeah.
Direct command. If you borrow money from the Jews and pay usury, you are violating a command of Yahweh.
Right. Guilty
Time to
as
stop.
charged. Guilty as
Take
charged.
back
Yep.
your birthright. Do not give these pretenders anything.
Yes.
They are not Israel. They are impersonating us. Wear that four-cornered garment, you men. And when people ask you, tell them the truth that you are of Israel. And that is a command of Yahweh to the people of Israel. Be bold for Yahweh. Be bold for Yeshua Messiah. Nobody's going to get this done except us. And
Okay.
if we worry about the opinions of society, of Babylon today, how do we serve Yahweh? By worrying about the Babylonian opinions.
Sure. Sure.
We need to stand up and man up and take back our birthright. Do not give these pretenders a thing. Don't let them have any part of your birthright.
Yeah, well, I think David Duke looks better with a beard, right? even though he's not one of us.
Whatever.
Right? Okay, well, what's next?
Well, I just wanted to open up. You're getting all kinds of emails and stuff that's showering fire and brimstone
Right?
towards me. But we're not living like Israel, people. We're claiming to be Israel, but we're not living it.
Well,
Walk the walk.
Yeah. We need to racially segregate ourselves, and of course that's
right.
Right. Yeah.
Do you still go to churches where they have mixed multitudes?
Yeah, no, we got to stay out of those churches. Can't set foot in those churches. Right. Right. Okay.
Do you sit down to eat with mixed multitudes?
Yeah, it's not allowed. That is not allowed. Yeah, as a matter of fact,
there are all these things that are signs of our Israelite heritage that we are ignoring. I don't ignore them. I'm not going to tell people to do what I don't do. Don't do what I do. Do what I say. Well, no. That doesn't fly. I have no credit cards. I have no bank account. I don't sit down to eat with mixed race people.
Right. No.
I wear a beard. I wear a prayer shawl when I call upon the name of Yahweh. I wear a four-cornered garment with tzitzit. I don't eat pork, catfish, or shellfish. And I love shrimp. When I was a child, I used to eat shrimp. Loved them. Could founder myself on shrimp. I don't eat it. Not because I don't like it, but because I'm commanded not to.
Yes. Okay.
Are you a Yahweh sayer or a Yahweh obeyer?
Yes. Right.
What are you going to do in your life? Not what you're going to talk about.
Okay. Well, there's no doubt all of us in identity decry the eating of unclean foods.
Right.
No doubt. No doubt.
I understand that.
Yeah. Right.
But there's so much more we can do. And what I'm trying to do with this show today is to exhort my brothers and sisters out there to become active. Quit sitting and just listening to these programs. Go out there and live the life of Israel. Present yourself as an Israelite. Be bold and say, I am of Israel. I am one of Yahweh's chosen people. Stop using God and Jesus. Do it right.
Yes, or qualify it. Yeah, or qualify it by using the sacred names. Yeah.
When people question you as to why you're doing these things, tell them. Don't be afraid. Yahweh will be with you. Who can be against you?
That's right. That's right. Yes. Well, obviously, when we're trying to bring this message to people who've never heard it before, and you're using Yahweh and Yeshua, and some people just get turned off by that. And so that's why I always, I go back to using their language so that they can understand who we're talking about, etc. Okay. I mean,
Yes,
so
but you explain to them who
sure.
you're speaking about.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
always give that explanation. Well, that is up to all of us out here to do that as well. But we're not going to take back our birthright unless you do it on a one-to-one basis. It starts
Yes.
with you, my brothers and sisters. You have to do it personally. You have to take the step. Oh, there's all these cliches. Longest journey begins with a single step, and this is the first day of the rest of your life. Well, unfortunately, those are true. What are you going
Yes.
to do?
Well, and then verse 29, which I think everybody can agree on without complication. Ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh. It does for the dead, nor print any
That's right.
marks upon you. I am Yahweh. So no tattoos, no cutting of flesh. So the what do you call it? The blood brother cut where I think the Freemasons and many white nationalists still do this. They'll cut their wrists so that their blood intermingles, which is probably not a healthy thing to do. So, yeah, I
Happy
mean,
age to you.
yeah, right. Right. Okay. I think, well, here, Leviticus 28:27. You shall not round. I'm looking at round. It says knock off. Primitive root to strike. I think round, to me, what does that mean? By
Means
implication.
shave off the corners of the side of the head, and not like a mullet, but they have you see the Mexicans that are of Indian descent, and they shave the side of their head and
Okay.
have that top knot.
Okay.
That
All
was a
right.
pagan custom.
Okay. So, all right, I see. Okay, so, all right, now in context, in other words, we're not to imitate the customs of the pagans, for
Correct.
sure. Okay,
Exactly in a nutshell.
for sure. Now, because I'm trying to figure out the language here, which is really not that precise. Corner, paya, a feminine of H6311, properly mouth. Okay, you shall not round the corners, the mouth of your heads. Uh, this is an extremely
Your mustache and around and underneath,
okay,
uh, like the Amish.
right? Obviously, well, you should trim it so your beard, your
You,
mustache
you,
doesn't get
you,
in your food,
you
right?
can trim it, and you can
Right?
trim your beard,
Okay.
but you are to wear a beard,
Yes, and then
even if it's
further,
1 inch long. That's fine.
yes, yeah, and then the word mar, shakath, primitive root to decay, that is ruin. Okay, you shall not ruin the corners of thy beard. So I don't know what does ruin mean. So this is kind of
You
uh,
are not to destroy the hair, like pluck the hair out,
okay, okay, that
because it won't grow back.
I see. Okay, all right. So we can certainly agree we shouldn't do that.
Uh-huh.
So were there any examples of unshaven men in the Old Testament? Because I'm trying to wrap my head around what you're saying here. Is this an
All the
absolute command?
descriptions of Shaul and all his soldiers and David and all his soldiers were all bearded. All the priests were bearded.
Mm,
Uh, all the Israelites wore beards,
okay.
and they had razors they could shave.
Right. Okay. All right. So okay. So what else do you have?
Nothing really. I
Uh,
was going to open it for discussion and see what we've got here. How much time we got left?
we got lots of time.
Okay.
We got an hour
Until
still.
10,
Yeah.
10
Because
o'clock or
yes,
10:30.
10:30. Well, yeah. No. Let's see. 7:30. 10. We got to 10 o'clock. Okay.
Okay.
All
We'll
right.
get
So
40 minutes.
now, but you had
I'm
you had made a
trying to
list of
get my
verses.
brothers and sisters to be more open about who they are. Don't
Sure.
try to hide it,
Okay. Yeah.
because
And
they are. They're hiding it.
yes.
Well,
Well,
I don't
right.
want people
They're
to think
ashamed.
that, well,
Well,
gee.
Yeah, I don't want to say ashamed because that's the Judeo-Christians. The fact is, our people, if they're openly, it's hard to go in public openly and declare I am a Christian identist or identian, or a Christian Israelite, and mobs will surround you and stone you to death, right? So we're in a situation like the Christians in the catacombs. They really couldn't be open, but among ourselves, I think is what you're saying. Among
Well,
ourselves,
you can wear a beard.
sure, yeah, and
You can
that
wear
won't,
you can wear a garment with a teat seat on it.
right? Yes, yes. Now, but you had given a list of verses at the beginning of the show that we've only covered a couple of them. What's the rest of them?
Which which ones? About the beard?
No, you had Psalms. You had made a list. You had recited a list of scriptures that you wanted to cover. That's
Oh,
what I
that was about the beard.
Okay. Well,
About
but
the beard.
Psalms doesn't have anything to say about beards, does it? Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh,
Let me go into Psalms 133
okay.
two. Psalms. Boy, it takes forever to get down to that.
Right. Well, yeah. I'm just doing it in eSword.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm doing.
yeah, yeah. Just scroll down, hit Psalms. That opens up on the
Uh,
left side.
like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard that went down to the skirts of his garment. That means down to the teat sheet
Okay. To the
of
fringe.
his the shawl that he was wearing.
Okay.
And it says in Second Samuel for the men not to come back until their beards are grown.
Okay.
Let me get that here.
Okay. So that's all you had. Just you just wanted to talk about circumcision and beards
Well,
and
that and food and
okay.
our people being more openly Israelites. You can see that their banking system is falling apart with the defaulting. The foundation is cracking. What can we do as
Okay.
Israelites to enhance this and further destroy their lives unless we come out publicly and say, look, these people are not Israel. We're Israel.
Right. Oh,
These
absolutely.
people are
Yeah.
pretenders.
Well, here I tell you what. Let's go into Acts chapter 10 because we can disavow or refute a common teaching among the Judeo-Christians, the Apostians, that it is suddenly okay for us to eat pork or eat anything that we choose. Okay? And we know that's not true because they have falsely interpreted, and they don't really read the scriptures like they're supposed to, where in Acts chapter 10, that vision that Peter had about, what was it, a carpet that had all kinds of meat on it,
A
right?
great sheet is what it says.
Right? Or what was it,
But
Aladdin's carpet? The figurative.
certain vessel, let's see what vessel is. Vessel, implement,
Okay.
equipment, or apparatus.
Right. Yes. Okay, so let's start at Acts chapter 10, verse 5. Actually, let's start at the beginning to get this total context here, because the clincher is Acts 10:28, which proves that the Judeo-Christian interpretation is absolutely wrong. That
Oh, yeah.
there's no way that Luke or Paul, Luke was Paul's amanuensis or secretary, and he took all this dictation. But some people say Luke wrote this book of Acts on his own. Okay, it may have been a combination of the two, but nevertheless, it's our literature, and of course the Jews decry the entire New Testament. In fact, there was somebody showed me a photograph of an Israeli rabbi tearing the pages out of a New Testament and throwing it in the garbage. That's what the Jews think of our New Testament, but and it's not their Old Testament
Well, that's
either.
what we think of the Jews.
That's right. That's right. It's mutual. Okay, Acts 10:1. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of a band called the Italian band, a devout man and one that feared Theos with all his house, which gave much alms to the people and prayed to Theos always. Well, it's very obvious to me from these first two verses, Pastor Steve, that this guy is he's an Israelite of Judah. Okay? But he also was faithful, because even in the Old Testament it says we should assist the poor and we should go out of our way to help our brethren whenever they're in need. It doesn't mean you should send checks to CIA-run charities, right? It means we should help the people. If Yahweh puts before us one of our brothers or sisters who are in need, that's a challenge for us to be generous to that person, and Yahweh will reward us if we are. But if we're stingy and hold back when that person is obviously in need, then we're disobeying the law.
That's right.
Okay? And, not that alms giving...
That is one of the characteristics of a Christian.
Right. He wants us to... Exactly. He wants us to be whole, not just, because in the Old Testament times, the alms giving had become like a routine, and the rich would obviously give more because they had more to give. But this is of all of us. So we are, and in many cases, there are some of the poorest women in the Old Testament and New Testament gave as much as they possibly could, and Yahweh rewarded them. Yes. Okay. So this is this Caesarea was in the territory of the 10 northern tribes. It was actually taken over by Herod. Herod had built himself a temple there to the pagan gods, which is more proof that Herod was not a Judahite. He was an Edomite. Okay?
That's correct.
Acts 10:3, he saw in a vision evidently about the 9th hour of the day, an angel of Theos, of God, coming into him and saying unto him, Cornelius. And when he looked on him, he was afraid and said, What is it? What is it, Lord? What is the Greek here? Kurios, supreme authority. What is it, Lord? And he said unto him, Thy prayers and thine alms are come up for a memorial before God. Okay, so your generous spirit will count as a memorial before Yahweh. That's nice, okay? You have to think of it in those terms. That, I don't have the money, or I don't want to give any alms to this poor white person. And I tell you, Steve, when in Chicago, the increase in the number of beggars on street corners, waiting for cars to stop at the lights.
Oh, it's here too.
Oh, it's gotten worse. It's in fact, I'm seeing more and more younger white people doing this. It used to be just blacks, Latinos, and Skid Row white guys, right? The obvious.
The
Right, the winos, right? But now I'm seeing young white men and young white women. I've never seen that before, that are simply destitute. Yeah. So I give them money.
You can't make a living working 2 and 3 minimum wage jobs.
That's right.
Especially in a city, it's so expensive you just can't live.
So I do stop to give them alms, but I don't, since the blacks and the Mexicans aren't supposed to be here in the first place,
no.
We're not obligated to. In fact, it reminds me of the story of some black guy from Hurricane Katrina. Some family in Houston took pity on him and took him in and allowed him to live in their home, and he raped their daughter, right? This is what they got for their generosity, right? He went and raped their daughter. So obviously they kicked him out and never heard from him again. But this is why they're not supposed to be living among us in the first place. So we don't owe them anything. They're not part of our seed. They're not part of our family. They're not our kindred.
No.
Okay. All right, so Acts 10:5. And now send men to Joppa and call for Simon, whose name is Peter. So this is Peter, Cephas, the apostle. Acts 10:6. He lodgeth with one Simon a tanner, whose house is by the seaside. He shall tell thee what thou oughtest to do. And now this is Cornelius. He's being told what to do. He lodged with one Simon, okay, and when the angel which spake unto Cornelius was departed, he called 2 of his household servants and a devout soldier of them that waited on him continually. Now, what's devout mean here?
A believer in Yeshua Messiah.
Well, devout, wouldn't that be a lawkeeper? I mean, what are you devout about?
Well, it means reverent,
pious, godly, which implies keeping the law. Right?
Yeah.
Now, this is after the crucifixion, folks. Acts 10:8, and when he had declared all these things unto them, he sent them to Joppa. On the morrow, as they went on their journey and drew nigh unto the city, Peter went up upon the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. So Peter was praying, and Cornelius had a vision. And Peter, became very hungry, and would have eaten, but while they made ready, he fell into a trance. Now this is a trance, and if you're in a trance, or if you have a dream, dreams are not usually to be taken literally, are they?
No, this is religious ecstasy.
Right, exactly. And he saw heaven opened, and a certain vessel descending unto him, as it had been a great sheet, knit at the 4 corners, and let down to the earth, wherein were all manner of 4-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. Okay, now the Judeos will quote this verse and say, well, see, this means that we can eat anything we want. What do you say to that?
That's metaphor for men.
Right, and that's
all different sort of men of Israel.
Yes.
That were living in foreign lands and living according to foreign customs.
Yes. Now, let me say that this verse is not talking about eating food. It's not talking about eating anything. It's just a vision. It's just a vision. Correct. So how can these people take this vision and declare, well, this is talking about what we can actually eat or not eat?
Because they want to.
Yeah, right. It's not saying anything like that at all. Let's continue.
They don't like the constricture of the law to not eat pork. They like their pork chop.
That's right.
And they're doing with their heart.
Right.
They're following their heart.
Right.
Not
which is the point of today's show. Right? You've expressed that several times. And there came a voice to him, "Rise, Peter, kill and eat." Remember, it's a vision. But Peter said, "Not so, Lord, not so, Theos, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean." So here Peter is saying, because he is saying, I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. Now, what's common? Koinos.
That's just something that everybody eats. That's shared by all.
Okay.
Profane, common, defiled.
Okay, so he hasn't eaten anything that the non-Israelites eat.
That's correct.
Just like Daniel.
That's correct.
In the Old Testament, okay, he would not eat the cuisine, just as Mordecai and Esther would not eat the common.
You beat me to it. I was just about to come off of that.
Yeah, right. Okay, and then unclean is akathartos.
Swine.
Okay, impure. Yeah. Impure. Okay, so Peter is saying, hey, "Father, I have never eaten anything that's either common or unclean or impure." So Peter is protesting here actually against the interpretation that the Judeos impute upon the previous verse. Okay? So they love to take these things out of context. Acts 10:15, and the voice spake unto him again the second time, "What God hath cleansed, that call not thou uncommon." I'm sorry, call that not common. So here we have to take this in context again. This is referring to the redemption of the house of Israel at the cross or at the
Correct.
stake. Okay? So how can you impute to this any more than that? Because if this is a reference to the redemption of Israel by the sacrifice of Messiah, it's simply saying that our past sins have been cleansed.
That's
Your
right.
comment. Your comment here.
And well, Paul had a confrontation with Peter. He would only eat with the circumcised,
Okay.
and set himself apart from the uncircumcised that Paul was preaching to.
Right.
Okay, and
Right. And also Peter was preaching to him too. Right.
well, yeah, but
He was
he
doing
wouldn't
that.
sit down to eat with them. He wouldn't go
Right.
lodge with them.
Right.
Uh,
Okay. So here, in both cases, it's used as a metaphor for Israelites.
for people, yes,
Yeah,
Israelites
so
coming back into the fold.
the circumcised are the house of Judah who had been practicing all of the laws up until this point in time when the Messiah came, and the uncircumcised Israelites of the 10 northern tribes, and both of these groups were scattered throughout the Greco-Roman world, and
Yep.
usually segregated from one another, okay, because the one group adhered to all the law, sacrificial and otherwise, and the other group had become paganized. And so you can appreciate Peter's resentment of the uncircumcised lawbreakers, and you can hear Peter saying to himself, well, Father, why should I consider these people my equals when they have never even obeyed the law as I have? I'm speaking for Peter here, and obviously all of the house of Judah felt this way.
And then these men had believed on Yeshua Messiah, and
Right.
therefore were cleansed by that sacrificial blood,
Right? Okay.
and were therefore clean.
Yes. Now we go back to the Levitical law, which this is not eating unclean food is not one of the blood rituals. Okay.
That's correct.
So whether you believe that Yahshua did away with all the law at the cross or not, this is not part of the Levitical law. Okay. So
Correct.
this does not tell us we can now eat pork. All right. So he continues, and the voice spake unto him again the second time, what God hath cleansed, call thou not uncommon. This was done thrice. So he got this message 3 times, so it'll sink in. And the vessel was received up again into heaven. So Peter had this vision, and you brought up the fact that this was a sore point between Peter and Paul. And Peter actually acknowledged to Paul that he was correct, because the message is not about non-Israelites. It's about Israelites of the 2 houses, and that the promise was given to all, the entire house of Israel. Going back to Jeremiah 31 through 37, it says, I will make a new covenant with the house of Judah and the house of Israel.
That's right.
Okay? So Paul was reminding Peter of Jeremiah chapter 31. What don't you understand, Mr. Kephas?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will make a new covenant with the house of Judah and the
Right.
house of Israel,
But
and not with the house of Edom.
right, but Peter was kind of ashamed of the house of Israel because they were not keeping any of the laws, right? And it's kind of like an elder brother who's kind of embarrassed for his younger brother. Yeah, you can be seen, you can be heard, but not seen, right? So this is the attitude that the house of Judah had toward the house of Israel. But Peter's being told here, drop your supremacist attitude toward your brethren, because the promise was that all shall be cleansed, not just the house of Judah. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Acts 10:17. Now while Peter doubted in himself what this vision which he had seen should mean, behold, the men which were sent from Cornelius had made inquiry for Simon's house and stood before the gate. Now here, Peter himself doubted the meaning of the vision. He had not understood it yet. So how is it that the Apostians can be so sure of themselves in thinking that this means Peter can now eat pork when he himself has doubts about its meaning?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, aren't these Apostians being presumptuous by taking that verse out of context when Peter himself?
Well, they're doing what they want to do.
Yes.
They're in this world.
Yeah.
And they want to live by this world, and they don't want any constraints put on them by the Old Testament.
Amen.
That's why they're New Testament Christians.
Right, exactly. But you can't understand the New Testament until you understand the Old Testament.
And you can't separate the New and the Old Testament, because all Yeshua preached was Torah. He preached the Torah.
Whatever was prophesied in the Old Testament that applies to the New Testament links the two together totally, and you cannot separate the two. Otherwise, you cannot understand the New Testament without understanding all of these, the typology and the prophecies that apply in the New Testament. There's just no way. Okay. Now, Acts 10:18, and called and asked. So these two men stood before the gate and called and asked whether Simon, which was surnamed Peter. So Simon Peter is his name, the name by which, or Kephas, Simon Kephas in the Greek, were lodged there. While Peter thought on the vision, the Spirit said unto him, behold, 3 men seek thee. Okay, so Cornelius had a dream, and Peter has a vision. And so the dream and the vision are bringing these 2 men together. Acts 10:20. Arise, therefore, and get thee down and go with them, doubting nothing, for I have sent them. Okay, now, the perception, Pastor Steve, of all of these Judeo-Christians is that Cornelius is a non-Israelite because he's identified as a Roman or a Latin. Is that incorrect? Are they perceiving this?
They don't know the history of the branch of Zerah Judah.
Right.
And
the
this
Romans.
book is always speaking about Israelites in dispersion.
That's right.
This is a book to the dispersion. The New Testament is to the dispersed.
Yes.
Which means us right here in America,
Amen.
and Great Britain and South Africa, and France, and the white Spaniards, and the Germans, and the Swiss, and the Danish, and the Scottish, and the Irish. We're the dispersion.
Yes. Amen. And it's not non-Israelites. Non-Israelites are never even considered. In fact, non-Israelites are considered unclean.
Yeah.
Okay? Unclean. And Peter is actually going out of his way to avoid being unclean, right? So he would not
he tried to classify these people
as the unclean, as the common.
National affiliation, not racial, national affiliation. They were Israelites in Greece or Israelites in Rome, like we're Israelites in North America.
Amen. Amen.
And
exactly.
he tried to put them in the same class as non-Israelites.
Right.
And that's what the churches, at first he did. Then he didn't, because he was awakened. And that's what churchianity is doing. Oh, this is all men are brothers. All men are created equal. That's not in the Bible.
Right.
That's in the Constitution, speaking of white Christian Englishmen.
Amen. The posterity of the Anglo-Saxon people. That's what the Declaration of Independence states very specifically. All right. So the understanding that the Apostians have that Paul is the apostle to the non-Israelites is absolutely false, because the word Gentile, which is not a Greek word or a Hebrew word, which is a Latin word. It should not be in the Bible, because Paul did not write in Latin. he did not write in Latin, so you can't substitute a Latin word for a Greek word. And that Latin word actually means kinsmen or blood brothers. It doesn't mean non-Israelites. So even if he were sent to the Gentiles, it meant he was sent to his blood brothers, his kinsmen.
Well, you can do that if you own all the printing presses and the ink supply, and you can do that.
Yeah, and
change
put in
there whatever you want.
Right, change it. So what we're telling people, if you want to understand what Paul is really saying, strike out that word Gentile wherever you see it and replace it with its proper intention. In this case, he's talking about the dispersed Israelites, the dispersed nation of the 10 northern tribes, okay, as distinct from the two-tribed house of Judah, okay? So, back to Acts 10:20. For I, Yahweh, have sent them. Okay, Peter, these emissaries standing at your door, pay attention to them because I have sent them to you. Okay, Acts 10:21. Then Peter went down to the men which were sent unto him from Cornelius, who was an Israelite of the house of Zerah, Judah, and said, Behold, I am he whom ye seek. What is the cause wherefore you are come? Acts 10:22. And they said, Cornelius the centurion, a just man, which means he was obedient to the law, right? Dikaios, which is what we're supposed to be. And if you're not obeying the law, there's no way you can't be just in your own mind. You can only be just according to Yahweh's law. And one that feareth Theos, or God, and of good report among all the nation of the Judahites. Okay, now, Pastor Steve, if the Judahites recognized Cornelius as having a good report or good reputation, and Peter doesn't even want to associate with the 10 northern tribes, is this not proof that Cornelius must be of the house of Judah?
Well, he was of the 10 northern tribes. He was all the way up from Rome. But
well, yeah, but there were
Judah went to. That was half of Judah up there.
Okay,
and
right.
he had to realize that. He knew who he was talking to.
Okay, a technical point. The 10 northern tribes weren't dispersed until 745 BC. However, the house of Judah, Judah split off from the captivity of Egypt and migrated up to Rome way back in 1500 BC. Okay.
Well, like Dan. Dan was seafarers. And
that's right.
They left before the Exodus, too.
Right.
Not all of them, but quite a few.
So, because you said 10 lost tribes, Cornelius technically was not of the 10 lost tribes because he was of the house of Judah, but he was still of Israel. He was an Israelite who practiced the law, who obviously practiced the law. Otherwise, none of these Judahites would have given him a favorable report.
That's correct.
Okay? All right. Was warned from God and by an holy angel to send for thee into his house and to hear words of thee. Okay, Peter, pay attention, because Yahweh sent these emissaries, and this dream is from Yahweh. Then called he them in and lodged them. And on the morrow Peter went away with them, and certain brethren from Joppa accompanied him. And the morrow after they entered into Caesarea, and Cornelius waited for them and had called together his kinsmen and near friends, okay, which were living in Caesarea. Now, we have identified Cornelius as a member of the house of Judah living in Rome, being a so-called Italian, okay? And his kinsmen were there, and they had to be Israelites. Otherwise, the house of Judah would not have given them a good report.
That's right.
Okay. This is how this is to be understood. The Judeo-Christians have this all wrong. Verse 25. And as Peter was coming in, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshipped him. Now what does Peter do? Right? Here's okay.
The worshipped here parallels with the Hebrew to prostrate. They bowed low.
Right.
Didn't actually mean worship as to worship God. And fell down at his feet and prostrated himself, because that's what you did with the high authority in those days.
Right.
They translated as worshipped, and that is incorrect.
I'm glad you said that, because in Romans chapter 13, where Paul uses the term magistrate, you shall obey your magistrates, he's not talking about Roman officials who disobey Yahweh's laws. He's talking about their...
A judge of Israel.
Right.
Like in the book of Ruth.
Right, exactly. Well, it's obvious here that Cornelius considers Peter to be such a magistrate. Yeah. Being a direct apostle of the Messiah, he would be the one he goes to. He walked with Messiah. So Cornelius worshipped him in that sense. Okay? Paid homage to him. Okay? Yes. That's what he did. Paid him due respect.
Right.
But Peter, but actually getting back now, what does Peter do if Peter thinks that the people living outside of Judea, are unclean? But Cornelius was actually more than likely of the house of Judah, not of the 10 lost tribes. So Cornelius is actually a kinsman of the house of Judah. In my opinion, this is the only way this could be understood, because he obeyed the law, which the 10 northern tribes did not. Okay?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay? I hope everybody's following the reasoning here. But Peter took him up, saying, "Stand up, I myself also am a man." And this goes back to where Yeshua tells our people, "I am your brother, I am your friend." And you do not bow down to other men. You just treat each other with respect.
Well, he said, "I am an Adam," because
right.
That's 444 again.
Right. Yes.
Which is anthropos, which they substituted for Adam.
Right.
I am also Adamic, is what he said.
Exactly. Very good. Very good. So I myself am also an Adamite. And as he talked with him, he went in and found many that were come together. So he's now entering a room filled with people of mixed company, house of Israel, house of Judah. Not mixed races. Not mixed races by any means. Okay? Yahshua said, "I come not but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel," meaning all 12 tribes in this case.
That's right.
And he said unto them, "Ye know how that it is an unlawful thing for an Adamite that is a Judahite to keep company or come unto one of another nation." Okay, and that's, I believe, ethnos. Elaphalos. Okay, so foreign. Now he's using the term foreign, of another or foreign nation. This is not ethnos, this is not genos. But Yahweh has showed me that I should not call any anthropos common, or that is Adamite, common or unclean. That's reserved for non-Adamites. Let me read this again. And he said unto them, "Ye know how that it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Judahite to keep company or come unto one of another nation. But God hath showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean." All right, now here, this is absolute proof, Pastor Steve, that the vision that Peter had nothing to do with food.
I should not call any Adam unclean, common
Amen.
or unclean. And that negates the whole Judeo-Christian nonsense that they've been teaching.
Yes, absolutely.
Not speaking about animals, speaking about Adamites.
That's right.
Living in dispersion under pagan influence that are coming back through Yeshua Messiah to the pure worship of Yahweh.
Right.
They are cleansed by the act of Yeshua Messiah.
Amen. Because they were Israelites redeemed under the law by Yeshua Messiah. Right? And this, it just took, this message had to sink into Peter's brain to understand that all 12 tribes had been redeemed, not just the two-tribed house of Judah. Isn't that the true meaning of Acts 10:28?
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
So we have to ask.
And that key word right there, anthropos.
Yes.
Equal to Adam.
Yes. Right. And even our founding fathers did not consider blacks and Indians to be men or anthropos.
No, all men are created equal means all white Christian Englishmen
right, are
are
created
born with
equal.
equal opportunity,
Amen.
not their farm animals.
Right, and it doesn't declare any kind of blanket equality even among whites, because it's just equal opportunity. Because everybody knows everybody's born with different amounts of money, different status, different intelligence, different this, different that. You know, we're declaring the equality under the law of opportunity, not a.
Equal opportunity, but not necessarily ability.
That's right. Very good.
Some people have one talent, some people have another talent.
Right.
That's like in the called out ones, what they call a church. The called out ones, we each have our gifts, and we each have
Yes.
our strong points, and we combine together as the house of Israel, worshiping in the house of Yahweh, to strengthen ourselves through each other.
Amen. Amen. Just as the sinews and muscles and bones of the body work together, right? Paul goes into this metaphor extensively elsewhere in the New Testament, that we're not to be jealous of one another for our talents. Just maximize the talents that you have, and Yahweh will reward you immensely for doing that. Okay? So, folks, here, Acts 10:28 is absolute proof where Peter states, I realize now that the vision is not about food at all. It's about Adamites, about
Yep,
the 12 tribes of Israel. That's what he's saying. Okay?
absolutely.
Now, apparently this verse does not exist in the Judeo-Christian book of Acts, because I never hear any of them quote it. All right, so this is what we're dealing with, folks. This is the kind of apostasy and shoddy, really shoddy theology that is going on in the Judeo-Christian world.
Well, I quote it to them and show it to them, and they run screaming.
Right. No, that verse doesn't belong there. It defies my belief system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, folks, I think we've given you a pretty good example of how you're supposed to read the scriptures very carefully, not with the sleight of hand and shallowness of the Judeo-Christian theologians and priests. We're not to be like them. This book is for us. We're supposed to, as you said earlier, Pastor Steve, we're supposed to take this to heart, read it very carefully, and not gloss over it. But that's
And
the problem.
examine each word.
Yes,
And
examine
it's
each word.
of utmost importance for the Israelites. Compare
Yes.
what's in the New Testament with the quotes they use from the Old Testament. You will find out that the
Yeah.
translations out here today
Yeah.
do not follow the line of the Old Testament. They have twisted them to make them say what they want to say.
Exactly. They've
A
defied the
lot
new
of
covenant.
things that Yeshua said in the New Testament, if you go back and read what was said in the Old Testament, they've messed with it.
They sure have. They sure have. All right, we're under a minute, so Pastor Steve, thanks. Great lesson today. We need to study and show ourselves approved. We
That's
can't
right.
be.
Take back your birthright. If you're going to say you're Israel, be Israel.
Amen. All right, folks, thanks for listening. Praise Yahweh, pass the ammunition. Pastor Dan is going to be live this morning, and stay tuned for Laura Ferris-Wilson. I'll be back for Voice of Christian Israel, and then, of course, David James on Saxon's Creed. A long lineup of live shows this morning. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Shalom Aleichem.